Hey everyone, it's Joe Glines here from Dallas, Texas, and my friend Jackie.
Hello.
Jackie's out of Denmark.
Yeah.
We're here on the, actually I looked at, it's on the next slide, but this is the 29th AutoHotkey Webinar, which is crazy to me that we've been doing it this long, but I looked them up. I'm like, wow, that has been a while.
Yeah, 2.5 years then, just
Yeah,
about. Yeah.
yeah. There's currently we have 27 registered. Because we didn't have a topic for today, it was more about, hey, do you have problems or do you want to share some of the cool stuff you've been doing lately? Also, it's still around the New Year's and people are getting back into things. We didn't expect a ton of people to be here, but everyone starts off muted just because we all try to talk over each other. It'd be crazy. And but you can either unmute yourself or raise your hand or type in the chat. I think most people just type in the chat if you have a question. So I'm gonna start off here. I posted this, at least the first one, the other day, but so I used to use Camtasia for recording videos like I'd used to load up to YouTube. And the thing I loved about Camtasia, except for the fact it costs a lot of money, was it had a pause button, right? So I could be recording and I couldn't think of something, so I could hit pause, and then I could get my thoughts together, hit unpause, and keep going. And it was really nice. But other than that, when you would record, it didn't record into MP4 straight away. You'd have to, after you did recording, then it would re-encode it. Is that the right term? To
Yeah.
convert it to MP4 files. And like if the video was 45 minutes, it could probably take like 30 to 40 minutes to do that re-encoding. So it was a long process. And I started using, Maestria turned me on to using OBS, which is an open source video recording software. It's really flexible, does a lot of stuff, a lot more than what I use it for. You can stream with it or do video recordings, but there's no pause button. And once you get used to having the pause button, it's hard not to have it. And so I was doing something the other day, and it dawned on me that, hey, you know what? If we made a tool with FFmpeg, which is also a free open source tool, now that though FFmpeg doesn't have any sort of a GUI, so it's all command line driven, but it'll merge together files, and actually often very, very quickly. If they're both in the same encoding, it'll basically append them instead of re-encode the whole thing. And it's free, and it does. I actually use it for converting things from the video files, which we'll show here in a minute. We've done our quick chats, and so we have MP4 files, and I've been converting those to MP3s with it. You can truncate it, the video files, and you can edit and do whatever you want. But I had Maestria. I asked him to build me a tool to help merge the files together. And so let me show you the one. This is the one. Let me launch the. This is the one that's just concatenating files. And for here, basically, let me open up my video folder, which I have no idea where that is. I basically got to drag in the videos I want to merge. That's not the right one. Where did my thing go? Here we go. This one. And there it is. This one. So let's pretend that I wanted to merge in a couple of these videos. I can drag them in here. I then would use the timestamp to decide the order of them, and I can just hit merge, and it's going to ask me what I want to name it, which popped up on the other screen. And I can name it whatever I want. It doesn't matter. And it will go and merge them for me. And now it actually is done. It merged those two files and created that new file there for me. And then it dawned on me, hey, you know what? What if we could detect that default video file folder where OBS saves to? And sure enough, it wasn't in the registry, but OBS creates a file under the app data, under the user, and says, here's where that folder is where you normally save to. And so he wrote the second one. Now, it's not quite done, so I'm not going to share that source code today, but we'll make it available soon. Normally, it would launch OBS for you, and this is where I ran into a little hiccup on mine. But I'm going to launch OBS. The other thing I did, by the way, so it's going to come up, and I'll demonstrate this a little bit. So here's the interface. Here's where I can tell it if I want it to grab. Actually, because I'm using the webcam with Zoom, it normally would have the webcam here, but I don't think it can connect to it because you can't have two sources listening to it. But I could record to it and stuff. And then once OBS closes, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't launch it yet. Let me launch that one. So, OBS, no, it's none of the, I think I'm in the wrong folder. I didn't move it over there. Bear with me. This is the new one that we're not quite done with. So, what it's going to do is it's going to launch OBS, and then when OBS isn't running anymore, it's going to come up and it's going to pull up the files that are in that default folder, and then you can look at them, and I can simply like check a box, and if I highlight it, it will actually pull up the video and show me which one it is and start playing it. But I can go through and say, oh, I want this one, and this one, and then I can hit merge, and it'll basically do exactly the same thing. But what's cool, obviously, is you can get an idea exactly what video you're working with. This, he's embedded the Windows Media Player into here for the MP4 files, and so it's a super easy way. So basically, I don't have a pause button in my recording, but I can start and stop as many times as I want, and then I'll quickly pull up these files, and I just click the buttons and merge them together, and it's the same thing as having a pause, right? So, like I said, the second version is not quite done. The other one, if you go here, you'll see I made a post and how it works in the source code. And then once I figure out a little bit better way to make sure we launch OBS properly, I'll post this other one. But it's all open source stuff. We're using AutoHotkey to kind of wrap the things, and they're both amazing tools that can do a ton of stuff. So if you have any needs for audio or video recording, I highly recommend either of those tools. And then this tool, if you want to have like a pause button to merge them together.
Yeah, true. I also use Camtasia, and I'll say, as you did, it has a price point, and of course I can't say I use the pause much, but I do really use all of the editing capabilities afterwards, of being able to both change what is visible, obscure stuff, pull in text, have stuff happen.
Yeah, it is a good tool. Yeah.
Zooming in and out, and focusing on smaller bits of the running video, showing where my mouse clicked, and all kinds of stuff. So the tool of Camtasia, to me, far exceeds what the open broadcast software can do. But for recording videos, where you want what you did as is, it's just great. It's kind of lightweight, it's free, it's all of that stuff. So yeah, sure. And as you said yourself here, now when you make it so easy to just stop and re-record some more and then merge it afterwards, yeah, it's actually quite great. And could you perhaps, not that I'm saying that you need to do that, but one of the things that I had a need for recently that I didn't really find, I was doing it at work and I had the need at work. So, and we didn't, in our software shop, we didn't have a program that was able to do it. It was to go in and set what part of the video I wanted. I wanted a smaller piece of it. Just,
oh yeah, sure.
I'm pretty sure that
you want to extract a certain part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just an idea, an extending idea, as right now you're merging, but maybe it has extra functionality.
What I did is I have this file that I keep handy, where this is where if I want to take a certain video and specify the start and end time, right? So for the one video, I can come in here and say I want to start at 21 minutes and 1 second, and I want to go to this time point and dump it into this file, right? Exactly. And so it does that. This is why, because it's persnickety, right? It takes a while to learn it, and for me, I don't have a good enough memory because I don't use it often enough to remember how to do this. So I just have this file, and actually, John, I have this built into QAP as well, but I don't think I've updated the QAP one as much as I update this one, so I still go to this one a lot. But this one I can convert from AVIs to MP4 or whatever you want, really, I think. This is, if you wanted just the start time but no end time, how to do it. And then there were some on, I wanted to, this is the one converting from MP4 to MP3 with 64 K as the audio wave level. Help me with that, Jackie, the terminology there, the bits. This one, actually, I think this is the one where it creates an animated GIF out of the video.
Oh.
It's a really, really impressive tool.
Yeah, I do remember hearing about it years ago, many years ago. So yeah. True.
You can also you can merge together videos, like let's say one's an AVI and it's at one resolution, and the other one is MP4 at a different resolution, right? Excuse me. It can still merge those together, which to me it hurts my head just thinking about like what has to happen for that to process.
Yeah.
But yeah. So anyway, it's a really I definitely say check them out if you want free ones. Someone mentioned WinCam.
WinCam.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and to your point, Jackie, I still Camtasia had a lot of great features. I just didn't really use them. I never went back and took the time to do what you were describing. Right, I was super rare when I would either zoom in or insert, markings and stuff. I think it's cool, and I should have, but I like to just get it done. Right, so I record them quickly, and then that's just that pause to be able, if I really start going off topic or I can't find the solution, I can stop it, figure it out, and then get back into it without. At the time, I didn't want to start a whole second video because I didn't want to have to merge it. But now merging's so easy, I don't care.
Yeah, of course. One of the parts where I did it a lot is when I make tutorial type videos, and I might want to obscure, let's say, my username or whatever if I log into something. If I am recording it as I go, I'll just do it as it's not live, but then afterwards I'll use some kind of part of Camtasia to obscure it. Either just put over a same colored box as the background, so it'll just look kind of plain, or they have all kinds of things that can also just obscure whatever you're doing. So yeah.
All right, so that was our script highlight. Then we're going to move on to announcements. So as I mentioned earlier, we've been recording them for a while, and these quick chats, and they're not always quick. I think the one today was like 44 minutes, so they're not always quick. But it's just Jackie and I picking a topic and then talking through. Actually, the very first one, if I remember right, we leveraged the video a bit more in that one. But most of them, we are mostly just talking. We're not actually referencing the video. So we have them available in both MP3 and video, MP4 on YouTube format. So you guys might want to check them out. And then, as I said earlier, this is our 29th webinar. And Jackie and I, we've been doing this for quite a while. And we're kind of at a point where we're like, the AutoHotkey language itself hasn't really changed in 2 years. I mean, not substantially. We're kind of running out of topics at least topics broad enough to cover in a webinar. And we're kind of, I don't know about Jackie, but I'm like, I'm happy to still come in here and hang out and help people and talk through what we've been working on. But as far as trying to think of the right way to phrase it, having a topic where we lecture on for an hour, I'm kind of at a loss. Maybe we'd still have them from time to time, but I'm not so sure we're going to be doing these in the same format as we have been, at least not regularly.
No, and that's the thing. I'm also totally for if something comes up in one, and it seems to be something that we either need to look into a bit more, or if a lot of people have the interest, or someone else might be an expert on it, or whatever it might be, we might make it the topic for the next one or something like that. That would make good sense. But yeah, I'm with you on that, Joe, that it's kind of hard to keep coming up with things that are not too advanced to just have people come in and get something from it, and not being too newbie-ish for our regulars. So yeah, it's a balancing game, and keeping with the idea of having a 1 hour lecture on a topic, where if we don't want to repeat ourselves, that's mostly the thing.
Yeah. So, does anyone have any thoughts on the matter? I mean, I saw Brad had some interest in specific stuff, but which of course we can still, that could be a working session. We can say, well, bring something you can, and I think he stepped away, but bring something to the webinar in a specific example, and we'll work through it for a bit. It's some of the best ways. So actually, and I wish I didn't have time to do it, but I wish I had time, because I sent out a survey about who wants to get paid to work with AutoHotkey and who wants to pay people, or even as a mentor. And I shared it with Jackie, I think it was last week, right, Jackie, somewhere there?
Yeah.
And it was fascinating, because the vast majority of people were like, oh, I'd love to get paid for this, but virtually nobody, very few were willing to pay either for code or for a mentor. And that's where I got to say, I have learned, whether you're paying for it or not, having a mentor has been really helpful in learning, watching other people, how they do stuff, how they think differently, especially hopefully someone, more advanced than you. But sometimes it's the reverse, which I know Jackie's mentioned that, right? Even like, let's say we're doing stuff together. When you're helping me with a project, you dive deeper into something and actually learn little bits there too, right?
Yeah, I've seen that in many things, and I'm kind of an advocate for people who are at some kind of level. If you're stuck, or if you want a better yourself on a specific topic, find someone who's trying to learn that topic and try to teach them, because no matter what you do, they'll either be able to ask the question that you were missing, or by you explaining what you are doing, you'll actually learn to do it better. Yeah.
The other thing is, which I will wholeheartedly agree with this, is, everyone having other people's insights to what you're doing, it helps, right? Even like when I'll do stuff with Maestria, he is a far better coder than I am, and yet he'll get stuck on something, and just by me asking a question, well, what is this? Why is this going here? What are you even trying to do? It will make him realize, something he's messed up. So, it helps a lot.
I heard about, I can't remember if this is the right name, but rubber ducking, which is just weird.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah, you've heard that. Okay,
yep.
Fair enough. Which is to have, let's say, a small rubber duck on your desk, and when you're stuck with a problem that you can't solve, you'll actually explain the code on your screen to the rubber duck, because by doing that, you're actually re-evaluating what you have written in a better way than when you just keep it in your head. Because actually reading it and telling it to someone makes you actually able to see a bit more flaws, something with the process.
Well, I think it actually makes you reprocess it, right?
Yeah. I think it's the part of actually sending it through the speech center probably is the thing that makes it actually click for you, just as saying other stuff out loud. And I just heard a study today where they were coming back with how do you actually learn to remember everything. And there's a lot of different things that you can do, and a lot of mental people that are really, really good at remembering stuff. And this survey, the only, or study is the right term, actually had found out that, let's say you had a grocery list with 30 items. If you drew all the items on the list, not write them, but drew them, you'd be able to remember them all. Just as an example.
Well,
and
actually,
they had tested this on a great number of people, and it seemed to be quite effective.
yeah.
Just because, again, comparing it to writing a list, some people also get a lot out of writing stuff down or writing it out. And then, like myself, if someone tells me their phone number, I might be able to remember it. I sometimes can do that. But if I actually myself, not them, if I myself write it down and see the number,
Oh, absolutely.
I'll be able to remember it quite well. But yeah.
I actually have quite a few books on the topic. This one's Memory Fitness. This guy, Richard Restak, R-E-S-T-A-K. This one's called The Playful Brain. Then he has one, The Naked Brain, and then the Memory Book. And then The Brain Has a Mind of Its Own. These are all from him. The Longevity Strategy. Oh, wait. No, that is Longevity Strategy. Optimizing Brain Fitness. Mozart's Brain and the Fighter Pilot. And Think Smart. Anyway, these are all, but they're all ways to help you keep your brain in shape and get smarter. A lot of it is constantly testing your brain, right? And doing Sudoku and just things to help your memory. And the more you use it, the better it gets.
Yeah, I can't see why that wouldn't be the case. So everybody should keep trying to stay on their toes, because everybody can, of course, hit a snag one way or the other. But if you keep actually challenging yourself to small everyday tasks of every kind, and I believe that coding like this, and I don't know the general age of people doing coding, but a lot of people in the AutoHotkey community hasn't had a background in coding. So this, foremost, is advanced problem solving. I don't believe that you can do it much more advanced than actually learning to code.
Yeah, and obviously familiar, being the more familiar you are with something, the easier it becomes, right? It's not new information. You're cementing the stuff in your brain. It makes it easier for recall to pull it up instead of having a few passageways, which makes it really hard for you to pull it up. My friend Gabe, who was on that webinar with me the one time and did the interviews, he works in cognitive psychology. He's a doctorate in cognitive psychology, which is memory, right? And so it's another reason why I'm pretty interested in the topic. Is he'll talk about studies he's doing on people's memory and recall and how they test it and test the effects of having distractions and having other things going, like having your email going or having other information, or I forget the terminology he uses, but things that distract you really take away from your abilities. But one is just, focus, like if you can't remember where you left your keys, hey, when you set them down, look very clearly at it, right? Or put it into like a word game to remember something with it and create a story out of it, and it helps a lot.
I heard one of those with people who keep forgetting if they locked the front door or turned off the stove or something like that. Just say something totally weird, like yellow carrots or whatever, something that's weird to you, whatever it might be. When you do it, as it will actually be much easier for you to remember that weird thing you said. Did I actually say that? Oh yeah, I did say that. Right. So then of course you can't use the same word twice.
Right.
Maybe with some kind of time span in between. Right. But the idea is for you to do something out of the ordinary when you do an ordinary thing you want to remember. So the reason you don't remember if you turned off the stove is because you've turned off the stove so many times, so that your brain actually just I can't say that word. Yeah. It just takes it as an everyday task.
Yeah, you even do it subconsciously, right? You don't even realize you do it.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. It becomes so much routine that your brain just simply optimizes over it and says, I don't need to store that. I also did that 100 times last year, so no need for that. and it's weird how well the brain actually does stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So does anybody have anything that they want to focus on during this session? Need any help on something you're working on? I mean, Jackie and I can keep talking, don't get me wrong, but
no, and I looked at some of the stuff that Brad, he posted.
Mm-hmm.
How do I scrape something from a web page? We already have a webinar on that.
Right.
I'm always interested in text manipulation, and again, we have one on that. And it's not because we can't tackle specifics on that. That's maybe one of the things that we can actually do with this new format instead of keeping it to the next hour. But yeah, it's great topics, but to make an actual tutorial or webinar that guides people through it.
Yeah, like I'm not going to do a whole webinar on stir split, right? What we could do though is say, like you said, text manipulation. I want to work on this, and then we can say, well, what is the term? Like, let's say this was the text was his message, that, or if everyone can see it, this. And we wanted to parse this in certain ways. What are some of the ways we could do that, right? Stir split's one. We could loop over each line and then still use stir split. We could use in string, right? There's a lot of ways we could parse over this thing, and that could be a fun thing. But it's I don't know how to explain that, right? It's much more specific. It's not a broad topic, right? It's very specific and niche, and I think we need a specific need to work on it.
Yeah, kind of what we want to do, maybe not because we've talked that out, Joe, but we don't just want to be an extension, or maybe want to be kind of an extension to the documentation and stuff that's already out there. But if going through stir split as an example, you already have quite a good foundation from the documentation. So to speak about that for an extended period of time, it's pretty quickly done. Yeah, this is the parameters. That's how you use it. Go.
You you said that so well. The other day, I made a recording with Hellbent, and he has a YouTube channel. And he's been on here. Or actually, he sent the webinars. But anyway. We were going through using objects and using push and delete or delete at and different stuff. And then he's like, well, there's a few more commands in here. And I'm like, I didn't know how to summarize it at the time, but it's exactly what you just said. It's like, I don't want to work through every little example that's in the documentation, right? When they're so simple, you can just, it's literally code. You just change it and go, oh, okay, I get it. Right. It was just, for me, it was too minutia. But I didn't do a good job explaining the way you just did, because you did a good job summarizing of, like, it's just, there's so much out there, right? They can learn that on their own, right? And even then, how well do you learn something when someone else does something so simple, right? You need to do, that's the stuff you really need to do on your own, so you start getting the hang of using the command.
I'd say that's one of the biggest things before we started doing all of that years before then, was me sitting there watching someone, let's say, earn money online. A lot of ways, do this, do that, make sure you get people to sign up for this free paper here and get people in your email list. All of those things are quite doable. If you don't have the list before, you could probably collect an amount within reason quite fairly, but turning it around and actually making money from that, as they promise you that you can, that's for the most part not what they're actually telling you how to do on said webinar. They're telling you how to start the list, what to do to get people on the list, but they're not actually telling you how you convert people on the list into something that's generating income.
Right.
And so it's easy to get new people who don't have a list in and tell them how to get a list, but you just get 1,000 people making lists and 2 of them actually getting to the point where they're making any kind of money from it. And I'm not saying it's a scam or anything like that,
Yeah.
because they're really teaching you how to get a list and how to get people, but you need to do all of those steps, and then after that you need to actually have something to push to these people of some kind to actually, and if you don't have that, then you might.
That reminds me of a Steve Martin routine I saw like back in the 80s. And Steve Martin he's on stage and he's like, let me tell you guys, I got the secret of how to make $1 million and not pay any taxes, right? And so the whole crowd, I mean, you know he's joking, right? But still, the whole crowd gets like really quiet. Yeah. He's like, first, make $1 million. Yeah. And then he goes, and then don't pay any taxes. He's like, then if the IRS comes to you and says, what happened? Say, I forgot. Anyway, it was hilarious, but no, I agree. They'll teach you some stuff, but you still got to have other things there to actually sell it and work it, right? But
yeah. And the thing I love about what you're saying there is because he probably has a great deliverance of how he actually does that one. Yeah. And people know that they're at a comedy kind of show,
right?
But still, does he have a secret of how to make $1 million? I'll listen just a little. I'll keep it at the low, but maybe it is a real secret. And then it turns out to be just plain logic. But
but no specifics, right? It's like, it's just, we're not going to actually tell you the how, right? But here are things once you get it going, right? You can do it, but it's not the actual, like, what topic are you going to do and how do you get your list of the thousands of people in the first place, right? I finally got a bit over 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, and that took me years, it's just such a niche thing, right? I'm not complaining. I'm happy for it, but still, it was like, that wasn't easy.
I have a friend and his wife now, and when they got their first child, maybe he just turned 4, but while she was pregnant with him, she started making Instagram stories, posting every day and so on and so forth, and she started getting more and more subscribers to this day-to-day living kind of things that she was posting, and at one point I was talking to them, and they're like, and if she gets 1,000 subscribers, it's kind of, it will get its own life, and it will just keep growing, and then she'll make money off of it. And I was like, how does that work? Just getting subscribers to view your images and your stories doesn't just make you money. You won't earn anything just by having 1,000 people subscribe to you as a private person. You actually need to take specific types of steps, either turn on some kind of ads or have someone sponsor you or whatnot. It doesn't just come by itself, per se. I know that there are stuff you can do where people have the option to donate to you and stuff and all of that. But it was just interesting that they had this belief that if I get 1,000, it'll start paying itself. I don't see how that works, but yeah.
Speaking of which, I'm curious, how many people here are interested in like finding, building a business where you get paid to code in AutoHotkey? Is that something we can talk to a bit more about? I mean, there's no exact, to Jackie's point, right? It's not going to be exactly how, but typical things where, John, I hear you, buddy, that we're looking for. Like me also, I think I made it clear, I don't actually want to learn, I don't want to get paid for the coding, but still I see such amount of potential that it's definitely a great way to make some money. Yeah, I hear you, Brad.
Yeah,
me too.
Yeah. I had what's that? A line of thought just now, and I think I actually lost it again. It probably summed down to what I was talking about just before, but Yeah, this idea of within AutoHotkey, there are kind of some fractions, I'd say, of people. Most users who get some kind of ability within AutoHotkey have the hope of making some money off of that.
Yeah, I think they see it's hard not to see the potential, right?
Yeah, of course, because if they can automate parts of their own work, or maybe larger parts of their own work, they of course think, or I know I did at one point, that if I can do that for myself, someone else might be willing to pay me to do that for them as well. And the hard part, or what I believe is the hard part, is that people coming or looking to AutoHotkey are mostly people who are at a place where they have a task or whatever that needs to be done. They don't really have any money because they're already tasked with doing the work, and they are looking for a way to jump the fence where it's lowest, but without actually paying someone else.
Yeah, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong here, I think with what you just said, I think that's a lot of people, and then there are people who they're supposed to be doing it for work. So the idea to them, if they can't get their work to pay for it, for themselves to pay for it, is not in their conceptual way of doing things, right? Whereas I went out, even though it was my job, I paid people to do stuff to automate my job out of my own pocket. Why? Mm-hmm. Because it now freed me up, for time. I'm like, I bought my time, right? Now I get to keep using this thing. And I was very open to it. I'm like, it feels weird. I'll admit, like, wait a minute, this is for this other company that's paying me to supposedly do it. But hey, if I can get someone that's better than me, to do it, and still they do it once, right? And I can leverage that code. It's great.
Yeah, true. And I think that maybe also the scope of what AutoHotkey scripts normally are, at least to me, is that. Oh,
Go ahead. I'll wait for you to finish.
I had one on the chat the other day, one of these AutoHotkey users who are also taking an education in programming at university or whatnot. And they are emphasizing stuff like modularity, where instead of making codes or objects and keeping it at a place where you can keep reusing whatever you wrote, so instead of rewriting the same thing twice. But with the size of many of AutoHotkey's projects, I believe that it's hard to accumulate a library of functions or classes or whatnot that can actually do that for you.
Yeah.
Because,
So, sorry, I jumped in a second ago, Jackie, but it reminded me was this interview I did with Gio, Gio led the neural networks webinar. Actually, I looked it up. I thought it was like 6 months ago. It was like it was the very beginning of last year, if I remember right, something like February or maybe March. And anyway, the interview, someone here shows it went 1 hour and 13 minutes. I say if you don't care about the general questions, skip the first roughly 30 minutes. And then he started showing some of these systems, full-built systems that he's made and is using with AutoHotkey, and they were amazing. It was really fun watching someone who has developed some really advanced stuff and is using them on these big systems. You're going to love this one, Jackie. He has one that tracks people's work live, right? So as they're like packaging up, and it's in a warehouse kind of business, right? So people that are live packing shipments and putting in the box, there's a TV displaying how many they've done for the people. There's like, let's say it's 12 people, right? How many they've done? Are they on par with their goal for the 2 weeks? How much of a bonus they're going to get, right? But they can see it while they're working. And so I'm like, this is beautiful, right? And it's all done with AutoHotkey. And that was just one of the systems that he built. But I'm like, I love that, right? Because not only do your counterparts who, when you're kicking butt, do they feel bad and see someone else can actually do really well, so it encourages them. But I can even see how I'm doing, and if I'm lacking, and that I need to do better if I want to make a certain amount of money, right? I'm like, this is beautiful.
Yeah. And that's the thing with AutoHotkey in general, and that might be what some of our older users might have seen at some point, is that they might have loved to move AutoHotkey away from, like, say, gaming or
Yep.
the influx of new users. But I think that we need something to make people stay, or make, like this with the paying that we just talked about,
Yep.
having some kind of I'm struggling to actually find the words for this right now, but some way for people who are building their AutoHotkey skills to see a future, or not perhaps a career per se, but something that will show them that auto clicker for that game might not be the end point of what you can actually do with the knowledge that you have accumulated. And that's the thing where
AutoHotkey, the gateway drug.
Yeah.
But it does. It opens up door, right? But you're right. It's like using it to hack some sort of game might open your mind to, like, well, wait a minute, I can do this for, and for helping people get more work done and this and that. In Jackie and I have talked about this. I'm going to put him on the spot because we didn't plan on this conversation. But I'm like, I mean, I think you all know. First off, there's a big vibe out on the AutoHotkey forum about making money with AutoHotkey, and a lot of people have big issues with that. I, for one, don't at all. Right? I'm. It's crazy, right? Why is it okay that I can write code to save my own time, but I can't write code to make money off it? It's insane. Because time is money. I've made. I'm not going to say a lot. I mean, it's a lot to some people. It's not to me. It's a decent amount of money, but let's see. I don't know. If I was to have to guess, I probably made around 30,000 so far with AutoHotkey for doing different things. That's not counting, like, because I was getting paid at work, right? That's side projects.
Yeah.
And doing stuff here and there, and picking and choosing. And then, of course, I do a crap load for free of just fun and playing around, right? But yeah, you can make some good money with it, and for me, there's nothing wrong with that.
No, and that's also what I'm trying to kind of emphasize, is that if people are within our community kind of are hit with this, no, you can't charge for your time, or people should be allowed to decide what they want to pay you, or you should always just say that just pay me what you feel like, or whatever it might be. That's maybe not the best way to make someone stay and extend their knowledge within the language. Because as soon as they get from the leisure part of automating their game, or having multiple clipboards or whatnot, if they don't see any benefit from staying with AutoHotkey, money-wise or stuff,
it's the whole socialism versus capitalism angle, right? Of, if I don't have a way to benefit from it, I could go out and do all this stuff that might help other people, but am I as likely to do it if I don't really have a way for myself to enjoy the benefits, right? To gain in some way. And it's just human nature. When you look at everybody in the planet, right? For the most part, humans are driven by, what benefits them, right? Not what benefits mankind. And like it or not, it's just reality, right? So if your goal is to get more people to be using AutoHotkey, right? That's where I go back to what you were just saying, right? It's when you have a benefit for using it, you'll get a lot more people using it even more. When you don't have that, less people are going to develop really cool stuff, because why should they, right? It's fun, it's a hobby, but
yeah, I can see that Captain Odin, he just posted that the only thing he doesn't agree with is obscurification and closed source. And yeah, okay, AutoHotkey is an open source thing, and that's fair enough. Okay, protecting it in some way or not, so that it's maybe not just plain text in all scripts if you're selling it to people, but don't overdo it, because you probably can't keep it away from people anyway. And that's not really what I'm going for here. It's just the amount of people in AutoHotkey that kind of believes that it's just something to automate clicking in a game or whatnot. Nobody really sees it as something. That's not right, because of course people see it as something more than just for games.
On average, though, yeah.
It's at least the first impression, maybe. That is because people kind of tend to be, you're talking about a game, I will not help you. So you either have people coming looking for game stuff, being helped by people who accept the gaming stuff, that only do gaming things, or you have the people that kind of keep away from all gaming, that might be actual better coders without a hotkey and can show people that you can do more, but they're totally missing all of these new people that are coming in that's trying to automate whatever game thing they're trying to do. And to me, it seems as if most people coming to AutoHotkey are kind of doing it for gaming related things. But if they all hit this kind of wall of not being helped by people who are really good at AutoHotkey, because, hey, I don't want to help people with gaming stuff, then you only have these mediocre people who haven't really been helped by anybody really good, helping the newbies. So the newbies are getting maybe not faulty code, but mediocre help.
Or mediocre code. It's not as optimized as it could have been. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's just, to me, kind of sad, that because you have people that are just not I'm kind of talking myself away from what I'm trying to say, so I'm losing kind of my own point.
Well,
but yeah.
Well, I'd like, if Captain Odin doesn't mind, because I'm a little confused on his statement. So the only thing I don't agree with is, so is he saying he doesn't agree you should obfuscate your code or have closed sourced? Because the next sentence is where I get confused. You can charge all you want. That's where I'm lost. Of like, is he saying if you obfuscate your code, you can charge? You know, they don't know what it is, so you can charge for it. Is that?
No, he's saying the opposite thing. He's trying to say that please don't obfuscate your code and don't use closed source. Keep it open source and keep the code readable, but charge for your time and your idea and your program all that you want. It's just the idea of closed source. I think he's...
Oh, okay. But how do you stop people from stealing it?
Yeah, and that's the thing. And I was very obsessed with that at one point as well. And I'm not totally sure how you'll stop people from stealing it. Normally, I'd point at saying the law says that you can't,
right.
But that's not the same thing as it not happening. Just view music industry, film industry, software in general.
Right.
You have a complete black market for all of that stuff. And there's millions and billions of whatever currency you're using in that industry, just as well as in the white version of the same thing. And I think that no amount of open source or closed source will actually remove that. It's just a thing. If people try to keep it for themselves, it will pique the interest of someone who thinks, hey, I want to know what this is, or this is paid, I want it for free, and then they'll either crack it and distribute it for free. And I don't think that just by going open source you remove that.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not sure how you actually do that, unless everything was free, and then nothing would actually be done, perhaps.
But even then you lose, again, to your point, Jackie, if you can have someone regulating it and go after people for stealing it, but then you're not stealing it because it's free. So that's where I'm confused.
Yeah, and the thing is, if you I'm just brainstorming myself right now. If you take the music industry, the reason it was able to go after stuff like Napster and all of that other things is because they had some kind of cash amount to use to do that, and that came from actually having an income to do it.
Well, let's not forget, before that all became popular, there was no real sources, for music, and then Apple, right, came out and they severely encoded, right, their music where people couldn't share it, and that's what actually got the music industry on board with saying, hey, okay, we can make money this way, it works, right? That was what actually drove that whole expansion, right? And then over time, of course, it got where, all right, well, we'll put everything in MP3 and it's not encrypted and whatnot. But that's what drove that for quite a while, right? That huge expansion of putting audio digitally.
Yeah, I'd say one of the things that I experienced is because I know that some of you has also been around for a long time, but I got my first 286 Olivetti computer when I was confirmed. When I was 14 years old, and not long after that, I actually got a modem. I can't remember. I think it was a 28K modem I got, and was allowed to use my parents' phone line to actually access the internet, and everything at that point was free, and it was for quite a lot of years. Everything. There was no memberships. There was no real closed anything. And I remember the first time I was playing Diablo 2, and one of the main sources of news within the or the Diablo community at the time, I can't even remember the name, they all of a sudden got a premium membership for maybe $100, not $100, but maybe $20 a month or something like that, and they would get the news before everybody else.
I was just gonna say, they were offering a service, right, and allowed them to capitalize on it and make money on it. But so now, instead of everyone having something at the same time, if you wanted, you didn't have to, but you had an option to pay for it and get something that other people didn't have, right? That's what I love about capitalism, is by making it where people can make money off it, people will create stuff, new stuff, right? Better stuff, and it actually has a reason. So that's why I like to privatize things and have money, where people can get rewarded, because you come up with things that we wouldn't be anywhere where we are today if it wasn't able to make money off it, right? People just the same incentives. I mean, you look at societies across the world, it changes things drastically. It doesn't mean that they're going to fail entirely, right? But it just, you look at the amount of, if we looked at the amount of what's the patents, right? By country, and looked at that by the type of government that was running, or ideology running that country, I will bet you we'll see a very strong correlation, right? The more private it is, the more capitalist it is, the more technology has evolved there and new inventions happen there. But anyway, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm on a high horse here. I feel like I am, but
I'm not gonna say that that's not true, and I'm maybe not knowledgeable enough about all of it. But yeah, I just see at least at the current state of the world, and as you said yourself, most people will do stuff for me, and I totally get that. And at one point, I can't remember when it was I was reading or listening or whatever I was doing, and let's say I had a crooked ear, it was really making me self-conscious. And I was sure that each time someone looked at me or smiled at me, they were looking at my ear. But the thing is that when you actually study this, ask people, most of the time, people looking at you will smile at you. It's a courtesy, perhaps. They'll not even have seen your crooked ear.
Yeah.
They'll have thought of dinner, or why is she looking like that over there, or whatever it might be, still thinking about themselves because he had a crooked nose, or she had a weird limp, or we use maybe 80% of our mental time on us, not on you. So even though I'm talking to all of you people here, I'll still be doing it from my own experiences, and I'll keep referencing stuff that I know or I have read or I heard or I did or whatever it might be. We are really, really me-centered. So if learning to code and keeping to extend yourself doesn't actually benefit you, but the AutoHotkey community or whatever it might be, that's not a good enough incentive to make people keep learning.
Hey, Jackie, and I forget how I came to it, but it was a post somewhere on the forum, but it mentioned, and I think you and I had this conversation like 3 years ago, in the Denmark culture. I'm pretty sure it started in Denmark, or it's a really strong Norwegian Denmark area thing. There was a sense of, and it's like jock skill, or I forget exactly how it's phrased, but it's looked down upon if you view yourself as being a more important or having skills above the rest of the people. Does that sound familiar at all?
It's the Yande law.
Oh, okay.
The law of Yande. I think it's been dubbed in English.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of a unwritten thing that exists in the Danish and some of other Norwegian and Swedish countries and stuff like that, where you shouldn't believe yourself better than us. And with us, it just means other people that are your equal. And it's, I don't think it's as strictly related as it once was, let's say in the 90s or maybe the 80s and before then. But it's still a thing. You shouldn't brag or boast your own success too much. You're allowed to do it within reason, but still you shouldn't do it too much. So an English or an American superstar, or how the American people react to people of superstardom thing, that's not a reasonable way of treating people seen with Danish eyes, because that's putting a specific person on a pedestal that they might not deserve, whatever. With us becoming more and more Americanized, or whatever you would call that, with all of the rest of what's going on in the world and in television and all of that stuff, that's of course gone down as time passes, but still, it's still a thing. I shouldn't, if let's say I have friends over for dinner, I can talk to a fair amount of the AutoHotkey project I have, where I'm making some kind of money and I'm having some kind of success, but not too much, because hey, it should be at a, I shouldn't become braggy about it. Yeah. Because they'll be okay with hearing about my success, but not too much.
Yeah, it's kind of ironic to me because I don't think most people like people bragging about how good they are, but it can be inspiring, right? If you can instead of say the focus isn't on me, but look at how cool this thing is, right? Oh yeah, by the way, I created it, but you know what? It isn't about that. It's It's looking like this, that little, merging thing that Maestriath wrote the other day, right? Trust me, he's very humble when he talks about this stuff too. But I'm like that he whipped up that, especially the video, the version that embedded the Windows Media Player in it. He cranked that out in no time, and like it's inspiring to me to see people do stuff, right? And how do you see that without it's really a tough road to balance, right? For someone to show how awesome something is, and at the same time not try and say like, look, I'm awesome. Right?
Yeah, and that's also a thing. And yeah, I know, at least for myself, because I have nobody in my friend sphere, whatever you call that, circle of acquaintances that do coding. None. I have a few friends who are actually kind of ITers, have jobs that revolve around IT-related stuff. It might be within television, so they might have servers or databases, but they don't code. They might survey them or do stuff with them, or they might be supporting a large IT organization with whatever kind of OS problems might be there, but still no coding and all of that stuff. And it just means that I can't really say, oh, look here, how see this fancy way I solved this coding problem. And so I don't really have anyone to do that with. So to kind of show my success stories, it is one of the things with this one. But as soon as it becomes something that might make me earn more than them or whatever, I kind of know that I shouldn't be emphasizing that too much.
Yeah. Again, did anybody have anything they want to share code-wise or review any questions or anything?
We had a guy way up in the chat. I can't remember where it was. He talked about GUIs and images.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry.
I actually have a small guide on my webpage about making a quietly, at least to me, I feel that it's a nicely looking GUI where everything is just done with images.
Yeah.
Within reason, at least. Maybe you should search.
Okay. What was it? Something pretty GUI? No.
Yeah, just go with GUI. That should be enough. Okay. I'm just guessing, but it should.
Beautiful GUI. Oh, that's not quite it though, is it?
Yeah, it's an interesting title, but yeah, try it.
Okay.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I remember.
Focus border. That's a word. But what you are actually seeing is actually a small thing with the GUI. That GUI is made with images. Not anything fancy, not GDI plus, not anything like that. It's just plain image controls, and when you click it, it gets the click, and then it changes the image, and then that's the effects that you're seeing here.
It took me a while when I worked through this. This is one of the first ones, especially I think this was the first one off your site that I actually worked with, and wrapping my brain around that, like, you're clicking it, but it's swapping out the image, and yet it's still recording that you clicked it, and so it can do whatever, right?
Yeah.
And how you wrote it, because if I remember right, like you have it for up to 3, but after that, then I think you'd have to change the structure of the logic or something.
Yeah, it's just because the way it's a variable that's toggled, and that variable has 3 states, and that's just what's happening. So if you have wanted to have a button or something else that had more than an on and off switch, then of course the logic there would need to be changed. So that's.
But it was really hard for me to wrap my brain around that this was an AutoHotkey GUI, you know, and it was so simple but yeah, like you said, it was how many lines? Do you remember? It was like 15 lines or something, or maybe it was.
Yeah, yeah. It's the correct article, not the one you have there, but yeah, it has that kind of catchphrase of boasting how few lines you can actually do it in. But yeah, to me, it's at least as soon as you grasp the very simple. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, as soon as you grasp simple idea of just changing one image for another image, then you can do amazing types of stuff. It's just a matter of having nicely enough looking images.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that the resources that you can download on that page, I actually lost the true images to a computer crash, so had to recreate the parts of the GUI again, and a small loss of quality on the images, but it was still not even, it wasn't very observable. I don't know.
Observable. Yeah.
Yeah. So even with images that are not as sharp as the ones seen in these images, will still look quite well, as long as it's done with precision.
Yeah.
They're it's quite simple. You saw there, it was made out of something like 5 images, and those were just used a couple of times over. And then,
this anyway, it was a cool one to work through.
Yeah, and it was just because someone asked about GUIs with images. Yeah. It's just, most of this could just as easily be done with, let's say, an HTML GUI, which is not recently, but within a few years, there was a tutorial made on it that you can find on AutoHotkey, where you can do stuff that looks just as well as this, but doing it with HTML and CSS and stuff like that. So as soon as if you wanted to do something like that, yeah, you could do whatever you see online in your GUI.
I just saw Jean has to leave. Thanks, and thank you, Jean. You led at least 3, maybe 4, I forget how many, of the webinar. So thank you for contributing. And we'll, we're not saying we're not doing them. It's just we're not going to have necessarily a formal topic. Hopefully more people will bring stuff they're working on, and we'll troubleshoot and work through things.
Maybe we should actually kind of wrap it up, or what?
Yeah, I was just saying, because we didn't break it by the hour, and I don't think we have a lot to talk about after. So.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I'm reading Mordecai's comment here. Definitely helping other people. It cements more. It's like anything, any topic, right? The more you help other people in it, the more better you learn deeper, and because often they'll have other issues, they're trying to solve other problems. You'll learn different ways to do what you're working on. So.
Yeah, and I'd say that a good model for going forward would probably be to, let's say, I'm not sure we'll do it today, but some of the stuff that comes up on one will maybe be what we kick off for the next one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing we could do is follow up on our the quick chats we have, and if people have comments, if anyone listens to them, right, and then they want to, go continue on that conversation of whatever topic we had, we could do it with that.
Yeah, and I love the idea of just talking about what we did this week, or what kind of challenges someone had. Yeah, sure.
All right, Yvonne. Well, thank you, and thanks for attending any other ones you've been here. Hopefully we'll still see you at them, but have a great evening.
Yeah.
All right, we'll talk soon.
Yeah, goodbye.
Bye.